are going to install Kali Linux. Or Kali Linux. We are going to be using VMware Workstation Pro version 15. So let's go ahead and create a new virtual machine. We are going to use the recommended settings. Here we select the second option. We are going to be installing our Kali from an image file. We browse to the location of the image file. So I'm assuming that you've already downloaded Kali Linux. It can be easily found from the Kali website. On the next screen, we are going to select the type of operating system. In this case, Kali is a Linux-based operating system, and it's a Debian-based distribution. So we are going to select Debian 10.x 64-bit. Here we are going to give our virtual machine a name. So let's just call it Kali. The default location for installation of the virtual machine is the C drive. In my case, my C drive is almost full. So I'm going to browse to my D drive and install documents. I have a folder called virtual machines, and in this folder I'm going to create a new folder, a new subfolder under virtual machine, and I'm going to call it Kali. So this is where I'm going to install my Kali Linux. So make sure it shows that the folder is Kali. Then I'll click OK. So the location for the installation is in the D drive, and this is the full installation path for the Kali virtual machine. And on the screen, we're going to choose the maximum disk size for the virtual machine. In my case, I'm just going to stick to the 20 gig. So you can actually increase the disk space from 20 gig depending on your preference. And we are going to split the virtual disk into multiple files. This is an advantage since it makes it easier to move the virtual machine to another computer. And the disadvantage is that it may reduce performance with very large disks. So I'll just stick to the second option, splitting the virtual disk into multiple files. Okay, so the wizard is ready to create the virtual machine. On the screen, we're going to click on Customize Hardware. So as you can see, the default memory size for the virtual machine has been set to 2 gig. So I'm going to increase this to 4 gig. So you can also change the number of processors and the number of cores depending on the hardware configuration of your machine. And then we make sure that the CD or DVD ID is set to connect at power on, and the path to the Kali Linux ISO is specified. Our network adapter should also be connected at power on. So there are various network connection settings. You can use the bridge, whereby the virtual machine will be recognized as a standalone machine on the network, or you can use the network address translation, whereby the virtual machine shares the host IP address. So in this case, these are basically the two major options that you can use. In this case, I'm going to settle for the bridge network. I'm going to leave all the other settings to their defaults. Then click close, and then we finish here. From the library, we have Kali Linux. So we are going ahead and power on this virtual machine. Okay, so we have the Kali installer menu. In this case, we are going to settle for the default, the graphical installation. Go ahead and press enter. On language selection, I'll be using English. Country, territory, area, stick to United States. Key map to use, I'll stick to the American keyboard, the American English keyboard configuration. So now the virtual machine is detecting and mounting the installation media. It's now loading additional components. Configuring the network. So in this case, it's attempting to auto-configure. The host name for the virtual machine by default, I'll set this to Kali. So I'll stick to Kali. Continue the domain name. I'll skip this. Full name of the user. I'll call this user Linux Monk, which is the name of this channel. For the username, instead of Linux, I'll use Monk. Set the password. And retype the password for verification. Click continue. Now the installer is configuring the clock. I'll stick to the Eastern time zone. Partitioning disks. So by default, we have guided partitioning selected. So you can settle for guided use entire disk and set up logical volume manager. You can use guided, use entire disk and set up an encrypted LVM, or you can use the manual partitioning scheme. So in this case, I'm just going to use the guided and use the entire disk. Click continue. So here we have three options whereby we can put all files in one partition, the root partition. This one is the one recommended for new users. Or we can separate the home partition, whereby we are creating the home partition and the root partition, and therefore separating user data from configuration files. The last option involves setting up a partition for the home directory, the far, and the TMP partition. So in this case, I'll settle for the first option. All files in one partition. Now click continue. So our disk has been partitioned into the root partition, and we also have a swap partition, which is 1 gig in size. So just use this configuration. Just write these changes to disk. So you just select finish partitioning and write changes to disk, and then click continue. Select yes, click continue. So now we're installing the base system. So on the bottom here, we have an information bar, and here it says click in the virtual screen to send keystrokes. So you can actually move the mouse between the virtual machine and the host machine. So we can actually, to direct input to the virtual machine, we click inside the virtual machine, or we just press Ctrl G, and then to direct the mouse to the host machine, you can click Ctrl Alt. So on the information bar as well, we have a section where it's saying VMware Tools enables many features and improves mouse management, video performance in the guest operating system, and click Install Tools. So in this case, I'm going to click here, remind me later. We are going to need to install VMware Tools later. So back to our installer screen. Under software selection, as you can see, we have quite a number of softwares already selected. So I'm going to add the KDE Plasma desktop environment, and I'm also going to select large default selection plus additional security tools, and so click continue here. Okay, so next we're going to configure the display manager. And so just stick to the selected option. So at this stage, the installer is selecting and installing software. And it's going to take a while. So you can just go ahead and grab a cup of coffee while the installer finishes to unpack software packages. At this stage, we are going to install grab bootloader. So we just select yes and click continue. Here we'll select device for bootloader installation. We'll use dev SDA. This screen is showing that the installation is complete. So here, go ahead and click continue. So our Kali Linux is rebooting. It's now starting the graphical interface. And now that our Kali is finished the rebooting, let's log in. Use the username monk and the password. Then we click enter. So we have successfully logged into Kali Linux. So let's click on the main menu, the top left corner. If you click there, gives us a list of everything, all the packages that have been installed, all the applications that can be used. You can see we have a list from number 1 to number 14. Is a list of security tools. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial. Please support us by clicking on the subscribe button. If you like this video, please go ahead and click the like button. Thank you very much.